That's been outstanding. Obviously, it's early. There's still things that need to improve in terms of execution. It's built that way on purpose. The first 6 days are really heavy installation on both sides of the ball. Philosophically, you do that because over time you get more reps, and the best way to add to knowledge and add to execution is by getting reps doing it. So the earlier you put it in, the sooner that they can make mistakes and get that corrected. So there's still a ways to go in terms of that. That's what camp's for, but the passion, fire, and energy has been great. It's a credit to them. But I told the defense the other day, it's kind of like marriage. Everybody's happy on their wedding day. Everybody has a lot of passion and energy the first 5 or 6 days, but what separates teams from others is what happens, from day 6 to day 15, and then the consistency over the course of the season. Can we keep that going? But I'm really pleased with where that is at the start of this. So from that standpoint, it's open to y'all.
Yeah, Coach, over here to your right. I was watching a coach's clinic of yours the other day, and I think you were talking about consolidating calls into maybe like one word or one term. And I'm curious if you, on the recruiting trail, if you guys are doing anything to like gauge a prospect's ability to recall information, because it seems like that's what those types of things would require.
I think that when you go through the recruiting process, the more time you spend with people, the more you can tell guys that really love ball and that are going to be invested in it. And it's our job to teach them, and it's their job to put in the work to learn, and we're a team in that manner. And so it's not necessarily just, we're quizzing and seeing, hey, who has the best recall, and they're the guys that need to be here. Obviously that's beneficial, but the guys that really love it, they're going to be determined to work through it, and ultimately learning comes from their own personal investment in it. And so I think you're gauging guys' levels of investment and love for the game of football, and then do they want to just play it or they want to talk about it? And if they want it to be part of every aspect of their life, man, that translates.
Coach, Kirby in the opening press conference was talking about off-season testing. He typically doesn't bring up testing, so it made me wonder about just size, shape, athleticism of this team. And again, I know they haven't done it yet or put the pads on, but just if you could compare this team athletically, size-wise to past teams you've seen defensively.
I'm not going to get. I'm really pleased with where this group is. I think they had a great offseason. I think that we have size. I think we have speed. I don't think comparisons are fair to the guys here or the guys before, but I'm really pleased with where they're at. I think that the conditioning level that we have, you're continuing to build up stamina to play. You build from playing a 4-play drive to a 6-play drive to an 8-play drive, and there's nothing like playing football to get in football shape. And so, we're still doing that, but there's nothing, I think comparisons are not fair to the past or the present.
Yeah, it seems like we've been asking about CJ and Raylan forever. As the guy that recruited him, as the guys who are in your room every day, where have you seen those guys grow the most on the field and also just as leaders in the linebacker room, especially with the smile coming out?
It's honestly really crazy to think about. I constantly refer to them as the old heads now, and I think that reality for them of, hey, time's running out a little bit, and it feels like you have forever when you first get here, and the next thing you know, you're a junior. But just their maturity level has always been high, but I think their outward confidence, their leadership, how vocal they are, and then just how that translates to them playing the game. They're playing faster, they're communicating faster. The reps allow you to see that people talk about the game slowing down. Well, the more you play, the more it slows down, right? Because now you're anticipating and not reacting. And I think you saw a little bit of that last year in spurts where, man, at times they were playing really fast. And I think the more they play, the more confident they are, both in terms of communicating with defense, commanding from a leadership standpoint, and speeding up their run fits, what they do in coverage, what they do as blitzers. And so I just think all of that has followed a natural progression. Those guys work really hard in all aspects of their game.
Coach, last year we saw Jalen Walker kind of take on a unique role that y'all talked about, kind of made y'all uncomfortable. Has it been anybody on this team in terms of showing the potential to kind of take on that same role?
Every team, so within saying, hey, make us uncomfortable, I think you ask the players to be uncomfortable because that's where growth comes from, right? And so I think it's important in camp you assess, hey, who are our best players? What do they do well? Obviously there is a blueprint for what the Georgia defense is, and there's a standard there, but that's more about how to play the game than it is about, hey, are we going to be more quarters or 3-deep zone? Hey, are we going to be more 5-man front or 4-man front? Hey, are we going to play more base defense, like number of linebackers on the field? Or are we going to get in dime on third down? All those variables are really based on who you have and what they do best. And that's part of what you find out in camp. You teach the defense, and then as you get closer to the games, you mold it to the guys. But we have, I think we're not asking anybody to, hey, go replace Jalen Walker in that way. It might be 3 different guys replace what he did, and it might be relative to their strengths. So it might be a little bit from the outside linebacker room, some from the inside linebacker room, but we're not going to ask somebody to fill exactly what he did, because might not be in the best interest of this team.
Glenn, what have you seen from Christian during fall camp, especially coming off of missing the spring, and just what do you envision his role in this defensive line looking like?
Yeah, I think he's, there's times he's been at a really high level, and the challenge there is sustaining it, because his level of intensity, effort, his level of communication, just his urgency is at an all-time high, which is what it needs to be. We need him to be a guy that can both anchor in the middle, but also be really disruptive. Because, hey, when you're playing, we always talk about, hey, when you're playing base mode, that's, hey, we're playing technique up front. Hey, the gaps are very clear in front of you. Hey, linebackers have to fill those gaps. Well, hey, we need him to be strong at the point of attack. Hey, we need him out back. But then when we move, he's a really good athlete, so he needs to add value in terms of disrupting plays when we do move him. And then I think interior pass rush is really like, there's ways to navigate edge pass rush on offense. It's really difficult to deal with the dominant pass rusher in the middle in terms of pocket push and winning matchups on guard and centers. And the more he can do that, like we need that from our interior D line, not just the run stopping ability, but pass rush ability and ability to disrupt plays and push the pocket. So that's what we need from him.
Glenn, how much of what y'all did run defense wise statistically was like from 19 to 22 having Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Devontae Wyatt, and the last 2 years not being at that level, not having them? Or is there other things that have been a factor, and do you think that maybe that stat could lie in some ways?
No, I mean, stats always tell you something. I mean, the stats are what they are. Like, I mean, you start rationalizing stats, then you're just making excuses for a performance that wasn't up to our standard. Number one thing we need to do better in run defense, okay, is tackle better. Like we did not tackle to our standard last year. If you tackle better, you eliminate yards after contact, okay, and then we need to leverage the football better, okay, specifically on the perimeter where the ball bounced out too much. And so, hey, that goes back to trust and playing together as a unit. So one of the we've just been really harping on, hey, the right way to tackle, which we always do. That's not like this is some unique thing, but our guys are very aware of where we need to improve. They know to play Georgia football on both sides of the ball, we need to run the ball and stop the run. And they've taken great pride trying to improve in those areas. But we need to tackle better, leverage the football better. And then ultimately, guys, we talk about changing the math. Like on an offensive playbook page, everybody's blocked except for the middle field safety. Let's not act like there's unblocked guys. No matter what you do on defense, every once in a while you might trick them. The way to change the math is to either take 2 blockers or beat your blocker. Okay, so that goes back to striking blockers, getting off block, technique and fundamentals. And the more guys we have that don't trade, we call it trading 1 for 1. Like, hey, if you block me and I stay in my gap, hey, but I don't do anything else to affect the play, I traded 1 for 1. The offense won on that play. So, hey, tackling, leverage the football, okay, and then we have got to do a great job of not going 1 for 1 in terms of dealing with blockers, and that's what it is. And when you don't do that well, it leads to the results we saw. And so, hey, we're not worried about that. We're just worried about the future, and guys are taking pride in doing those things every day.
Glenn, how are you approaching the abrupt movement on defense pre-snap with officials looking at that? How much does that hurt what you guys do?
I think, Kirby had the quote about, defining what abrupt is. I think that's really important. I think educating your players is, hey, this is what's seen as abrupt and this is what's not seen as abrupt. And anytime there's rules, whether it's roughing the passer or abrupt movements, you educate your players on what the right way is, and you coach them how to do that. And it's not going to be our job to officiate it. it's our job to present the rules and the information to our players, coach them the right way, and make sure we do it that way.
Coach, I want to ask you about 3 players we haven't seen a lot of up to this point. Can you tell me about Elo Mendoza, Joseph Jonah Jonier, and Quintavious Johnson?
Okay, Elo, just hey, that's that. That's so it's Elo. Man, bright kid. Like I just love he. You wouldn't know that he hasn't been here his whole career. Just watching him, and I'm talking about that from a person standpoint. Okay, let's not say from the standpoint of seeing him fit in with the guys. Like he is meshed with our unit exceptionally well in terms of, you know, you always, when you bring in a transfer, there's always an element of, hey, how are they going to fit in with our people? And we try to do our background when we bring people in of, do we think they fit our culture? And he's done a great job with that. He's still learning. You know, this is really 6 practices into it for him, but he's an athlete. The things you saw on tape that made us interested in him coming here, you see those. And I think as he gets more and more reps, you'll continue to see more and more of what he can do from a, you know, edge rusher standpoint, a edge setting standpoint. And he's also a really good athlete. You know, this guy played wide out in high school. So when he does need to drop and do those things, he's unique in that sense. But he's still, you know, we're 6 practices in. It's his first 6 practices. So even though, you know, he's an older guy, he's out there, you know, adjusting like some of the other new players. So he's only going to get better from here. And then you said Joseph Jonah Jonier. You know, Joseph is a great athlete for his size. He has the length we look for in the defensive end position. He has some natural power to him. And I think that for him, he, you know, you're looking in that Michael role where you want to be a guy that can go from playing inside the tackle to outside the tackle. And that's really what we need from him. And, you know, with him not getting as many reps, it's the same deal. He's there every day, he's getting better. And I'm really excited about what he's going to do this year because we had high hopes for him at the beginning of last year. What, the third person? Yeah, Q is a guy who, you know, you think about athletically, this guy was a high school quarterback, he played on his feet. So some of the things that you know, marry up with what I said about Elo's skill set, like that balanced out. Q's really bright. The guy really cares at a high level. He's a good athlete. And as an outside linebacker, there's a lot asked of you, more than just setting the edge, and he's able to do all those things. And so he's had a good camp, he had a good spring, and you know, we need more out of him than what we've seen so far, but with the way he works, we're confident we'll get it out of him.
Yeah, I'll keep running down the roster. What have you seen out of Chris Jones since he moved from inside to outside backer? And also, you know, we've heard a lot about Elijah Griffin. What have been your impressions of him since he arrived on campus 7-8 months ago?
Yeah, first of all, you know, Chris Jones is a selfless guy. When we had those losses, you know, at outside linebacker, and we were looking in the spring, you know, his body type, he has a naturally bulkier frame. So he's a guy who played inside and outside in high school, okay? But his frame had the ability to put on more weight potentially to be able to be an edge setter, and he was all for whatever helped the team. I think you know, it's like starting over though. You know, he spends a whole year learning a position at one position, and hey, these are my alignments, these are my fits, these are my coverage responsibilities, and then you start over. So I think you saw that in the spring. I've been pleased with. I've seen growth this fall. He's improved as a rusher, which he didn't get to do as much last year. I think I've really seen him flash there. He's a heavy-handed guy, so he needs to keep developing, but he has a skill set that can help us out there. And then the second was Elijah. Yeah, EG's doing great. You know, you always want to temper expectations on young players, but he has a maturity to him, a work ethic to him. He's obviously a big guy with a lot of athleticism, so we hope that Elijah's able to help us this year. The capacity with which he'll be able to help us is really about how he continues to grow and advance. But he's had a good start to camp.
Yeah, Coach, you sort of alluded to this with the run defense specifically, but I wanted to ask you about the defense overall, as far as whether you felt like it met the standard last year, which obviously around here is very high, and it doesn't matter which guys leave the building, you expect a certain standard here. Do you think the defense overall met that last year?
No, I think that's we weren't consistent enough to meet the standard. Like that's just the reality. You can't have games against 5 playoff opponents, the teams that made the 12-team playoff, and play really well there, and then have 4 other games where you give up 28 points or more. Point blank period, right? Like we know that has to be better, and you can't be up and down. Consistency is the mark of, you know, great defense. We talk about, you know, being a lead or not. Like to be a lead, you have to be consistent. That's what makes something elite. So we can't have up and down performances. And everybody in that room knows that when they came to Georgia to play championship level defense, coaches, players included. And so anything short of that isn't the standard. Right?
Got time for one more question.
Yeah, Coach, over here. You always talk about the importance of a football coach being a teacher. You're essentially a teacher. So I guess what makes a good teacher, and how do you go about becoming a better teacher?
Well, as a teacher, you teach to your students, right? Like you have to have an ability to teach to different learning styles, right? If you're trying to reach the whole room, right? So there's times that hey, you have to teach at a pace that's exciting enough to keep the guys that have been here and that have a high level of understanding. You have to challenge them for their growth, okay? But you also have to teach at a pace that still reaches the guys that are learning, and that's what I think makes a great teacher is the ability to get through to all levels of understanding. You got some guys that came and played single A football and some guys that came from an IMG academy, right? Like the level of football they've been exposed to is different. So you can't just coach to one guy, right? Like I told the linebackers this morning, I'm like, it's like if you're in a lecture hall, it's hard. Like it's hard necessarily for some guys to learn in a lecture hall. There's 100 students in there, right? When we have meetings, it's interactive. So part of teaching is interacting. I don't want to sit up here and be like Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah. That's not good. Like they need to interact. They need to ask questions. So part of that is making sure they understand communication from them matters. And if they're not giving it back to us, we can't help them. We can't know when they don't understand. But then part of it on our end is making an effort to reach each individual. And how you explain something to one person might not make sense to the next person. So you can't just teach it one way. You have to find a way to reach each individual because that's our job as coaches.
Thank you, Coach.